Arabia recently executed 47 members suspected of being in Al-Qaeda. What do you think of this type of justice?
Well, it's probably not the kind of justice we have in America, because we have a presumption of innocence. People have a right of trial. They have a right to see evidence against them. It's one of the reasons that I've had some misgivings about Saudi Arabia for many years, is that they have many abuses. They funded madrasas that teach terrorism, and yet the United States government has largely overlooked the abuses of the Saudi government because we've been so dependent upon them for sources of energy. All the more reason we need to be energy independent, and we need to be exporting energy, not importing it.
Thank you.
How are you hoping to capture that magic of 2008?
You know, I don't think there's any shortcut than going out there and talking to voters one-on-one and organizing in every county. As of Thursday, we will have done events, not just driven through and waved. We will have done events in all 99 counties since the middle of May. We're doing 150 events in January alone. I don't know of any other way to win the caucus other than the old-fashioned way. If it doesn't work, then maybe in the next caucus, if there is one 4 years, people will just buy radio and television time and come and wave and parachute into big events. But I think the country, not just Iowa, I think the country loses something if we lose what has been historically the pathway to win Iowa, which is you've got to go out there and talk to welders and farmers and single moms and people working in stores, and you cannot buy it, and you cannot just somehow bypass it and purchase the top 500 feet of every radio and TV tower in the state and still expect to win.
Is part of your strategy at this point just kind of waiting for people like Donald Trump to kind of implode, with some of the things that have come out with him being in a training tape for ISIS and things of that nature? What's your take on that?
Well, we're certainly not waiting on anything. I mean, when you schedule 150 events in 1 month, that's hardly waiting. And I would say that we're obviously not letting any grass grow under our feet, but with this much snow on the ground, I don't think much is growing under our feet anyway.
You spoke about how Putin would push around Hillary. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that, and what exactly would he do?
Putin went into Crimea. He's gone into Ukraine. He's put presence in Syria. He knew that this government was going to do absolutely nothing to in any way stop him. And in part, I think it was a test. And in part, once he realized there is no penalty. The president said there would be a red line in Syria. There was no red line. And even after Syria violated his so-called alarm bell, nothing happened. So Putin pretty well feels like he can get away with whatever he wants to under this administration, whose policies were largely the creation of both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
Who would you rather face in a general election, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders?
I'd like to face neither one. I think both of them should drop out before the general election would finish up. But the one thing, I mean, let's face it, it's likely to be Hillary Clinton. I don't see anybody else doing it. And I think one thing I bring to the race is that nobody in the entire Republican field has ever actually battled against the Clinton political machine and apparatus, and I have, not just once but repeatedly. And I repeatedly defeated it, and I live to tell about it and live to fight another day.
Governor Huckabee, you mentioned in there that you view the 2016 cycle as a little bit bewildering because it seems that experience is a weakness for some. Are you worried at all that Iowa voters and national voters are going more for Senator Cruz, Senator Rubio, or even Donald Trump and Ben Carson who don't have that experience?
I'm not as worried about it right now because I still believe that Iowa voters get serious when it gets close to caucus time. Historically, that's what they do. I like to say that Iowa voters, they like to date everybody in the school, but they won't put a ring on it until just before the wedding. And I don't think that's going to be any different this year. I think you're going to see all the extraordinary opportunities to look at and kick the tires of every candidate. But Iowa voters aren't voters that are easily swayed with TV ads and by somebody coming in and saying, I've got a big budget. They're ultimately swayed by, does this person connect to people like me? Are they going to represent the views of people like me? And it's one of the reasons that I'm hoping and praying that Iowa does not lose its place in this presidential process. Because if that were to happen, I truly believe the country loses something. If candidates can spend most of their time doing big money fundraisers in Manhattan and Georgetown and Hollywood and bypass small towns, never meet people that live in places like Ottumwa, then God help us, because all we're going to have is will be a whole slew of candidates who are well connected with the swells, but they don't know those folks who are standing in the layaway line at Walmart.
Have you been frustrated with how the RNC's been handling debates?
The big disappointment in the debate schedule is the debates are being based on polls that are not necessarily reflective of anything other than who's getting the most face time on TV. And I don't just blame the RNC, I blame the cable networks who have created an industry out of this. And frankly, they're making an enormous amount of money. And they give a lot of airtime to somebody who will say things that will get ratings, and ratings get revenue. Believe me, I understand how the system works. I've been in the belly of the beast. But it's not necessarily serving the election process very well. And you know, when you look on a stage and you have two stages and there's 4 people on one stage that collectively have had more substantial and successful public service experience of accomplishing things by 2 times over the 9 people on the other stage, it kind of makes you wonder what the criteria is to be part of this process.
One more.
There have been some complaints from the Cruz campaign that you and the Protection Reporting you have been unduly negative about Cruz and in a bid for...
Could you name anything I've done or said?
Well, you talked about people saying one thing in Manhattan fundraisers,
Right,
and another thing in public, which I assume is a reference to Senator Cruz.
Well, I didn't originate that. It was originated by a whole bunch of national news organizations. I simply pointed out, and I mean, if that's not true, then I guess somebody will have to figure out how it isn't true. But it sure seems to be that there's a different message being given in one place than another, and I'm not the one who originated or said that. But that's why we have elections, is to let people come out. That's not negative. It's a matter of helping people to understand that there is a difference. And if somebody's going to say, I'm consistent, they need to be.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
All right.